Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to our 200th episode of
Pod Smash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer.
Woo! Once again, we are in person, drinking beer together, recording in person, and
We are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
that's right. We're your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite.
And the idea that we're talking about today is we're celebrating 200 episodes and almost 4 years. And in 8 episodes, we will have reached our 4-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are...
Been doing this for a while.
Been doing it for a while. So the idea, we wanted to... Sometimes we do episodes like this and we like to be self-reflective and we like to talk about like our favorite memories and stuff like that. We want to be a little bit more productive with this episode. And so the idea that we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about content creation, specifically content creation centered around video games. And we're going to be basically sharing our experiences and the things that we've learned and our successes, our failures, our steps, our missteps. And, you know, maybe someone out there will be inspired to create content. And if you're not, maybe you'll just learn something about content creation this episode. So we're going to be getting to all of that, but we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So what are we drinking for our second time recording in person in a year?
On our 200th episode, this very celebratory beer, once again provided by friend of the show, Sean, is the second of 2 Firestone Walker's Anniversary Ale. And this one is from 2020.
Last year.
So when we celebrated becoming in person together again post-pandemic, we drank the 2019, and now we're drinking 2020. Which,
2020.
if it tastes anything like the year treated us, I'd probably throw up on site, like immediately, as soon as it touched my lips.
All the best parts of last year.
Right.
The work from home. It was
is that what this is?
The Tiger King.
It was the freed responsibility plate, like clean plate, like no responsibilities because everything got shut down. That was pretty nice. That was pretty
It was
good.
the Biden victory.
Hey,
it was all the good things of last year.
Yay! Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Oh, that was lame. You got to hit the ball of the glass together. There you go.
That was also kind of lame.
All right. Well, we did it great the first time.
Really bad at tinking. We haven't done this in a year.
We don't want to break the glass. We don't want to spill the beer. So these Firestone Walker Anniversary Ales come out once every single year. They're kind of hard to find, and they are a special barrel-aged blend of beers. I will read a quick description about what they are in case you missed our last episode, but this is what happened. Every late summer, right before the wine harvest gets rolling, we invite our local winemaker friends to the brewery to help blend our annual anniversary ale. Winemakers are practicing experts in the art of blending, and we realized early on that they could provide invaluable input for creating a seamless beer from numerous barrel-aged component ales. The winemakers come for both the challenge and the camaraderie. They split up into small teams and create their own preferred blends from the provided components. Each of the resulting trials is then blind tested by the entire group. Votes are cast for the winning blend. The victorious team walks away with bragging rights and with a set of coveted cardboard crowns. And thus we have 2020's Anniversary Ale.
That's right, and I will read which the combinations are from this year's winner. We have, and last year I read them all and said what they were aged in, and they're all aged in bourbon barrel except for one. So I'll read the one that's not aged in bourbon barrels. So this year's mix final blend consists of the Velvet Merkin, a milk stout, the Sticky Monkey, that's instead of Y's, that's EE, so Stick EE Monkey. That is a central coastal quad. The Parabola, that was in last year's too, Russian Imperial Stout. The Smoked Imperial Walker's Reserved, robust porter brewed with beech wood smoked malt. Interesting. Bravo, an Imperial Brown Ale, and then the aged tequila barrels, Tequila Barrel El Dorado. I think that one
It was in the last one too.
Yeah. So blonde barley wine. So that's the blend. It's all blended together into one beer. And
gosh, all those beers sound so good.
I know.
A blonde barley wine aged in tequila barrels. Yes, sounds awesome. But yeah, it even gives you the percentage of the breakdown. So 27% is Velvet Merkin and 26% is Sticky Monkey. And then Parabola and Smoked Imperial Walker's Reserve are 16% each of the makeup. Only 4% of the whole beer is the tequila barrel aged, which is why you get so little of that. But yeah, a little bit of smoke. I definitely get that. I definitely taste the Velvet Merkin. I've had that before. The milk stout gives it its body. Yep. It's very sweet and thick.
Sweet, smooth, cold. I love it. Although the cold is you're doing so.
Right.
We also have another backup drink. So halfway through the show, we're going to be drinking something else. We'll get to that when we get to it.
That's
So-
not that special. It's a common
It's
drink,
not.
but yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about it anyways, probably when we get there. So it's nice to be, once again, drinking in person with you and recording
Hey.
the show again.
Again,
It's going to be kind of hit or miss which episodes are going to be recorded live and which not live, which ones are going to be recorded in person and which ones are going to be recorded remote. And that is partially due to my baby will be here any second. I might have to drop what we're doing here and
Wouldn't
rush
that be something?
home.
What
That
would the
be
name
crazy.
of your child be if she was born right now? What would
it's going to be? What we've already picked out. Is what it's going to be.
No. Because you were going to call our friend's
Naming
baby
rights?
Tempura because
Sure,
she
nickname.
left a sushi restaurant to give birth.
You have nicknaming rights then. If that's good.
Ooh.
Just like I had nicknaming rights for all of the babies that were born
Mhm.
that were rushed away when.
You can't put that responsibility on me. I'm not creative.
Well, too bad.
I don't know.
You have-
Was it going to be like Virtual Boy, except she's a girl?
The
So
Virtual
girl.
Girl.
Like, that's dumb.
yeah, you were dumb.
But
You have
I'm
really
looking
bad-
at the Virtual Boy, so that's why I was like, oh, that's what I'll name her. That's dumb.
How about Danny's basement?
PlayStation 3.
So you admit that tempura is a creative nickname because
Well, yeah.
for a baby that
Right.
had to be rushed out
From a sushi
from
restaurant.
a sushi restaurant. Yeah. Well, there we go.
That's all you got out of that whole conversation was validation.
Oh,
Yay!
so clever. Thank you.
Now you know who Penguin is.
All right, so beer is good.
Yeah.
God is great.
Mhm.
And what was the
People
last
are
one?
crazy?
People are crazy.
Yeah, that's a country song.
I know. I
Yep.
know. We are talking. We can talk about whatever we want, right? Because this is the point. A part of the show we can talk wherever
How
we
you
want.
doing?
I'm doing.
How are things? How are things?
I mean, well, like I said, about to have a baby in any time, so that's a thing. My wife had a little bit of a scare the other day. She had some symptoms that were not necessarily symptoms that she recognized from last pregnancy. Most notably, her heart rate just like randomly spiked,
Oh.
and so there were some other things going on at the time that maybe it was just a panic attack, and she thought she was going into labor, and that was what caused her heart rate to spike. But I do remember also reading that like the heart rate kind of spiking can be indicative of like pre-labor. So that happened on Friday and we were like, is it go time? I don't know. So we were actually kind of hoping it would have been really convenient to have the baby over a weekend for a lot of different reasons, but it didn't happen. So here we are once again in the week, and here I am completely on edge. Like, oh, it could happen at any time. So my prediction was always that the baby's going to be late. The due date is July 24th. And my prediction is that the baby's going to be born in August, but really it could happen at any. We're in that stage now where
You're here.
She's 38 and a
That's it.
half weeks.
Yep.
The babies are born typically around 39 to 40 weeks. So like, so we're in this. We are definitely in this waiting stage. And labor comes with all of the questions that labor comes with, right? Like, it's number one, it can be incredibly dangerous for a woman's body. There's a lot of things that could go wrong for both her and the baby. So that's always hair raising. And then there's also just like, last time it was 17 hours, you know what I mean? And we did partner assisted labor. So I was helping. I was active and participating for 17 hours. I've never done anything for 17 hours. Not a single thing, like a single thing to do. I've never done for 17 hours. Not by any means trying to minimize my wife's role. She had much more to do, and she had a much, my wife is a freaking champion, and I have never seen anyone do something so powerful in my life. I was also there to help, and like I said, I've never done anything, like I've never devoted my attention to one thing for 17 hours ever before. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, man, some people talk about having like 40-hour labors. I'm like, no. Can this one be fast? I would be willing to do 8 hours. I work for 8 hours, right?
Yeah,
8 hours of labor. Let's do it. Let's knock it out.
And I'm sure your wife would appreciate that too.
Yeah, we're both hoping like let's like get into the hospital and like 2 hours later have a baby.
Be
That would be amazing. So you hear stories like that all the time too. So
You do. Everyone's different. Every birth is different.
every pregnancy is different too.
Right.
Every labor is different as well. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's exciting, but it's also a little bit like, okay, this is what we've been preparing for the last 9 months, and yet I don't feel prepared at all. So,
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes.
Yep, every time.
Yep, every time. I have 2 children of my own, if you are new to the show, and so I was also, I guess, partner-assisted labor without the official term. I was there through both births, so I can totally relate. You guys are going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. And it's a very exciting time of life to be in. So
yeah, your brain
who's watching
kinda
your little one?
tricks you. My sister-in-law. Well, the plan is to have my sister-in-law, Brianna, who was on the show, Brisbane McFizzle.
Yeah.
She's going to come with her husband and daughter, and they're going to come stay at our house, which is like great because it'll be Gavin's home, my son's home turf.
Yes.
The problem is my wife called her as a trial run when she had her little
Oh yeah.
event on Friday.
Uh-huh.
Her sister didn't answer, so she texted her, and she goes, "First test failed." So, because we don't know. Again,
I'd pay money for that phone conversation, by the way.
I know, it was pretty funny. We don't know when, this is another thing. If you aren't a parent, if you've never been through this before, it happens when it happens. It could be 3 a.m. It could be 3 p.m. And those time frames are entirely different in regards to like having someone come on. When it was just us, then my wife's water broke at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were like, okay, like we didn't have to care about anything other than like, hey, maybe can we have someone come give food to these dogs?
Right.
Like that was, or to the dog at the time. And that was it. That was the only concern we had. Now it is like, okay, like we literally cannot leave this house unless someone is there to watch our son.
Yep.
Or unless we drop him off somewhere, you know what I mean? Like, so we've had other people offer like, hey, if you need us to watch him for a few hours until they're ready to come watch him. So we've had people make that offer. But when the time happens, who knows what's going to happen? So
Just call everyone on the list.
Really? Yeah. You might get a call and be like, hey, we're dropping Gavin off at your house.
Okay. I'm up.
Yeah.
I got your back.
Yeah. So that's fun. But kids.
Wild. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, maybe it could, like, the next time we could be recording a podcast, it could be, so I had a baby last weekend.
Yep. Any week, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
cool. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about? Anything?
I started physical therapy, which is a whole new avenue of my life
What
that
happened?
I've never done.
Or, like, what do you need it for?
I've been nursing a left hamstring strain since April. It's now in the middle of July. Hamstrung. It has not gotten any better with my own ways of recovering through stretching, foam rolling, and rest, and all of the
Sounds
things
like physical therapy.
to do. So I was like, yep, I'm going to go see a doctor now. And sure enough, after all of the cool little tests that they do to rule out stuff like sciatic nerve pinching and are your hips malaligned, or is there something wrong in your shoulder, or maybe your skull's twisted, like anything that could affect the hamstring that's not the hamstring, they ruled out.
Yep.
And they pinpointed exactly which muscle. They know what it is. And so there's a plan for recovery, which I'm excited about because I've not been able to run.
Yeah.
And so not running, I've been running for 8 years. This is the first time I've not regularly been running, and I feel like my entire world is falling apart. I am getting way more fit, way less fit. I'm losing all of my fitness. All of the work I put in towards trying to qualify for Boston is eroding away, and I'm gaining weight. Well, thank you.
And you have value outside of your ability to run.
The mirror begs to differ. Anyone?
No. F the mirror. I'll break every mirror in your house.
Yeah, but
you have value and are beautiful.
Thank you. But any of those efforts won't affect my mirror.
Well, then fix your daggone mirror.
Yep,
I
need to.
Kick you in the nuts every time you have a negative thought about yourself until you stop having negative thoughts about yourself.
I was going to put the positive spin on this. It's like I have the hope now that physical therapy will get me to where I need to get to because we know exactly. So if I started like the whole online research of what am I going to do to recover and started all these exercises, I'd be at severe risk for breaking myself more because I didn't know exactly what was wrong.
Yeah.
And so that I could have actually ripped my hamstring or strained it even more by doing poor or incorrect exercises. So now
lesson learned. Well, not lesson learned the hard way. Lesson learned the not hard way.
Yeah, I did this on my own.
And passing that wisdom along to our listeners.
Yes.
Seek professional help, whether it's physical, mental,
spiritual,
emotional, spiritual. Seek professional help when something is wrong, because usually they'll be able, that's what they're there for, is to be like, hey, actually do this exact thing and don't go to the internet.
Right.
The internet is not professional help.
Nope.
So
WebMD is great in a pinch.
Yeah.
It tells you, should I go to the doctor? WebMD is my gate, like my threshold. Like if I have a symptom,
you're sneezing too much.
Right. Like,
WebMD is going to be like, it's either
you've
got some dust in your house that you should probably clean, or it's cancer.
Right. So you have to make up your own mind.
Right.
So similarly to my physical therapy story, I was walking out of work on Friday and rolled my right ankle pretty badly.
Oh, man.
So I spent the weekend gimping around.
You realize the universe is telling you that you need to...
And I wasn't even trying to work out. I was just trying to go home. So I've been dealing with those this week.
No running for Termite anymore.
I'm coming back hard. It's going to be great.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
There you go. That's it. That's about what's going on in my life.
Awesome. Well,
babies and running.
Babies and running are some of our favorite things, but
doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Doing this podcast is our favorite
thing.
I forgot.
Why?
I'm in habit. I forgot.
We record remotely so often, and we have to stop and let one of us sing at a time, that when we are in person, we don't have to do that anymore. And it's my favorite thing.
And I've already forgotten.
Singing the favorite thing banter together.
And I've already forgotten.
And you've ruined it.
Only 2 episodes since we're
You've
back, and I've
ruined
already
it.
forgotten
You're
where we
the
are,
worst,
who we
Bird.
are. Yeah.
Favorite things is a segment of our show
Where we like to share with you the thing that we are excited about or digging this week in hopes that you are inspired to go out and find your next favorite thing. My favorite thing is something that you can't necessarily get unless you're one of the lucky people who backed the Way of Kings Kickstarter campaign. The Way of Kings Leatherbound Kickstarter. My swag bag finally came in.
Yay!
And it's really funny.
So long.
My wife was like, I know. My wife was like, you're going to talk about the swag bag as your favorite thing tonight. And I was like, you bet I am. But here's the funny thing. Like 7 months ago, I think, when I first got, like, the backing was finally done, everything was complete, and the stuff was starting to get shipped out. They shipped out the poster first, but I got a notification saying that I was getting my items on the way, and I was like, yes, my swag is coming. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned it on the podcast that my favorite thing was that my swag bag was coming, and it turned out not to be my swag bag, but just one piece of swag, and I never circled back around.
Yeah.
So that favorite thing was actually a favorite flop.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So now,
good segment.
favorite flop. So now it is finally here. I got all my stuff, my pins, my stickers, my playing cards that have Stormlight characters on the back of them.
Are you going to use them? You going to open up and play
I
stuff
don't
with
know.
it? Play
Part of me
some poker?
wants to not do that, but then part of me wants to absolutely do that.
Yeah, I know.
And
That's
then
tough decision.
what else is there? Oh, they have these like really beautiful coins, like they're little coins. And
what about the book?
I got the book already. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't back as far as to get the leather bound because that was expensive.
It was.
But I backed at the level that was like $50 so that I could get the physical hardbound copy of the novella Dawn Shard. So, but I've lent that out already to someone who wanted to read it. So I don't have it in my possession right now, but I do have all my swag now. So that's my favorite thing. It's really awesome. It's really cool. You should read the books, Brandon Sanderson. That's the takeaway. Is if you haven't read these books yet, and you like reading books, then do it. Go read them. The first book's called Way of Kings. If you don't like reading books, there's audiobooks, and so you have no excuse.
That's
so
true.
If you're mowing the lawn and you're like, man, mowing the lawn sucks. I wish I could escape into a fantasy world where people kill crabs with lightsabers, giant crabs with lightsabers.
Then they could just listen to 80-Bit Pod Smash on their phone, like Gamer Time does.
Yeah.
When he mows his grass.
Oh, or that. Or you can listen to these books. If you don't want to listen, if you've already listened, you're like, I'm already an 80-Bit Pod Smash diehard, so I'm already caught up. And every time I go to mow the grass, I have nothing else to listen to. I've exhausted all my 80-Bit Pod Smash content. Way of Kings.
Way of Kings, the first book in the Stormlight Archives.
Yes.
Yeah.
By Brandon Sanderson.
Right.
That is all. What is your favorite thing?
My favorite, I have hit a new level in playing video games with children. My children. I have evolved to the next tier.
Yeah.
My oldest son is 6.
Did he beat you in something?
No, we're talking. That's Charizard level. Okay, we're going from
Charmander.
We're going to Charmeleon.
Okay,
like
gotcha.
we're on the cusp of Charmeleon.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
I love
so Charmander is your son or daughter is super young and they try to play games, but
they don't do very well.
They don't really do anything, but they kind of have a good time, or they get mad because they can't do anything and then they stop. Now, I am a parent who does not go easy on children for anything.
Okay.
If we're playing a board game, I am going to use strategies that I would use against my friends. Like, I'm going to think and play to my utmost ability. I want my children to actually learn to beat me. They have to beat me, right? Yeah. So and it's fine. There are parents who let their kids win because that gives them the
self-esteem, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't fault that at all. That's just every parent's their own, every kid's their own. And maybe I could be persuaded otherwise, given the child itself.
I'd be like a mix. It would depend on the game. If it was
the kid.
Yeah, really, if it was like Mario Kart, I'd let him win. If it was Smash Bros, I would not let him win.
Okay. Well, so far with the personality of my son, I don't let him win on anything. Nothing. Sure. In fact, he got so confident in Mario Kart, he thought he could beat me.
He told me
and
he could beat you.
That's
he said
funny.
that. He was like, I could beat Dad. I was like,
So he's playing 50cc, and he does something. He gets the 3 gold stars, which means he got first place in all 4 races in a cup. And I was like, all right, let me show you how it's done. And then I put on 200cc, and I beat them all. And I'm like, now you try. And he got wrecked, of course. And so he had an appreciation for my skill in Mario Kart. Now, my actual favorite thing, where we're at. So that's all context.
Yep.
I broke out Mario Party 2 on the N64. It's right behind you. You can see it. It's right there. There's evidence. And I played a full 20-round game of Mario Party with Sam.
Nice.
And he enjoyed it. We played every mini game, and we got to the end, and I destroyed him, and that's fine. But he had a good time, and that's all that mattered. And I sat with him and taught him how to play every mini game. I was super patient, which is against my personality. It took a lot of work. I was like, we're going to practice every one. There's practice mode. You press R, the shoulder button, and you can do all the mini games until he learns. Yeah. And I gave him the chance to learn how to do everything until he was confident enough to do it for real. And then he didn't lose every game. So
Yeah.
because it's Mario Party, right?
Yeah,
There's a
of
little bit
course.
of
Yeah, there's
random
a little bit of
choice
random.
and
Yeah, RNG.
clunky mechanics and things that like make it so it's even the best players don't always win.
Sure.
So I happened to win. I got every one of the bonus stars. I'm just
Nice.
saying,
Flexing
flexing over here. Hey.
bonus stars.
So there was 2 CPUs we put on easy mode, and then my son and myself, the 4 of us, and he came in second place. So he
Good,
beat
yep.
both CPUs, which gave him the self-esteem and like the endorphin rush.
the student shall become the
You
master.
know, he's coming, and it was wonderful. But Mario Party
It'll be
takes
awesome
so long.
when we can play like 4-player
Yeah.
games because Gavin's got interest in video games. He doesn't play them yet, but he likes to watch it. We were just playing Luigi's Mansion today.
Yeah.
And he said, this child chose to watch me play Luigi's Mansion over eating today because it was dinner time. And I said, okay, let's go get some dinner and then we can play Luigi's Mansion. And he goes, want ZB Mansion first? And I was like, all right, I'll play some Luigi's Mansion now. So it was awesome.
Screw dinner.
Yeah, forget dinner. Yeah, you can eat whenever.
But I told him that exact thing. We can play with friends too. He was like, "What?
What?
Oh my gosh!"
Awesome.
He says he has this like, "Oh my gosh!" whenever he gets excited about something. So he was definitely about that. So
Word.
it was awesome. We had a great time. It took a
Yay.
really long. It was a fun bonding moment.
That's awesome.
Father son video games.
The
Mario
takeaway
Party.
is have children and then play video games.
Yeah, why not? That's what they're for, right?
Yeah, that's what children are for. That's
That's it.
the only
Just to
thing
play
children are
video
for.
games.
It's like, hey, I'm sick of not being able to play games to people, so I'm going to literally make people to play games. All right, that is favorite thing, which moves us to our next segment, which is
DLC.
DLC.
So I
Oh.
added one here. I don't know if that's what you care about. If you had one planned that's better than that, give it to me. But I threw it on there because you didn't have something,
No.
and I was like, which one do we want?
No, it's fine. I like yours.
You really?
I do. I like it.
You like
It's
this
good.
one.
Mine's better, but I like this one.
But what's yours?
Mine's just more of our typical silly fare. If you don't know what DLC is, this is a perfect opportunity
It is.
segue for me to explain it to you.
Yeah.
Our normal fare is normally we have a conversation that you wouldn't normally have about video games. And not to say that this isn't common, but normally our things are things like which video game character would you want to see hit a baseball and how far do you think they'd be able to hit it or whatever or
Or our blank blanks,
which
are
video
awesome.
game character would win in a spicy food contest? Like one of those, like, have you seen the spicy peanut challenges where it's like
I've not.
peanuts that are dusted with different, like, super hot
Uh-huh.
powders
Yeah.
that are made with, like, Ghost Reaper Pepper X,
Mm-hmm.
and they're super spicy. And the idea is you have each peanut, they get progressively hotter.
Bowser would win.
Who would win that? Yeah. Bowser, Ridley, any of the fire breathing characters would win.
Charizard.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that's all, but I like this. So why don't you introduce our DLC question for the day since you
All
came
right.
up with it?
Yeah, I didn't. I stole it off Reddit.
Oh, okay,
but I
that's
don't know
fine.
where it was posted.
Oh,
So
yeah,
there you go.
sure.
I can't even cite it. I just saw it and I was like, this is a great DLC discussion, especially for our
Boom.
200th episode.
Yeah, I love it.
So if it's your first episode with 80-Bit Pod Smash and you don't know who we are, thank you for joining us because now you'll have a chance to really learn about us because we're going to be talking about all of the content creation stuff that we have done and how it influenced us, and this DLC does not disappoint. So,
Yes.
5 games that made you the gamer you are today. So look at your
So
whole
not
life.
just like what you let your. This is specifically not your 5 favorite games,
Correct.
but the games that made you, like, including the person you are, not just yeah. Okay.
And I don't know if I can list 5 from memory, so I didn't know if you would accept this DLC, so I didn't do the work to prepare. So and you probably didn't either.
No,
so now
no.
it's going to be kind of off the
Off
cuff.
the cuff, sure. Do you want to do 5 or do you want to do like 3? 3 might be.
Let's go down to 3.
Yeah, and then we'll save some time too, since we're coming up on.
I
the
have
minutes.
3. I have 3 cemented.
Boom. Okay.
Done.
Yep. Go.
And they're all great. They're perfect.
Sure. If you you've been thinking about it a little bit longer, so give me some time to think. So I
Yeah.
want to hear your 3.
My
while I
3.
think
All
about
right.
mine.
I'm going to put Mario from Nintendo and Super Nintendo. So I'm going to put Mario 3 and Mario World together as one because they're very similar games. They're side-scrolling Mario games, but those are fundamental in getting me to even care about them.
Right.
Like,
okay.
so that's why that matters. That's why I'm a gamer today because I played Mario when I was 3, and then I continued to evolve playing more Mario games and through Mario World.
Sure.
Right. So that's the foundation. Was Super Mario World, Super Mario 3, Mario All Stars on the Super Nintendo. Hard. This is the next diversion. I was going to split up since we're only going with 3. If I had 4, I could interject a Zelda title.
Okay.
But we only have 3, so I'm not going to say Zelda. I'm
Okay.
going to say Final Fantasy 7.
Right.
And that's
surprising with you.
And I'm lumping that through Super Mario RPG because I probably wouldn't have appreciated Final Fantasy 7 without Super Mario RPG. But I'm going to say Final Fantasy 7 because it's my favorite game of all time.
Sure.
And it's foundational to my exposure to Japanese RPGs in their purest form because Mario RPG is very similar, but it's not the quote Japanese RPG that Final Fantasy VII is, that exposes you to all the anime and all of those things that make me appreciate everything that's a Japanese RPG. And then I'm going to go to The Witcher 3. And the reason why I picked The Witcher 3 is because I hated Skyrim and Fallout until I appreciated the open world exposure that I got through The Witcher 3, and it actually made me appreciate the games that I appreciate today, like Horizon Zero Dawn and like Fallout 4, Fallout 76, and I went back and played Skyrim, and I love them. Outer Worlds I loved, but I never finished. I need to get back into it. All of those types, that whole genre of games, is I only care about because of The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
So I am the gamer that I am today, and the games that I play and love because of those 3 games. Mario World, Final Fantasy VII, and The Witcher 3.
Got it. Whew. This is tough because you factor in, like, what does it mean to be a gamer, right? But I think I know I have at least 2, and the third one I think I can work in there. So I'm going to say my first one is probably going to be Pokemon.
Ooh.
I'll say Red/Blue.
Dang, that's a good one too.
The reason I say that is because it was the first game that I was into and that my friends were all into, but that I encountered in the real world, so to say. Like, I encountered with my peers and realized that it wasn't necessarily cool to be in, you know what I mean? Like, I could have put a target on my back by being into Pokemon.
Yeah.
At least I know that it was actually a super popular game. I know a lot of the kids that probably picked on me for playing Pokemon probably played Pokemon themselves or were into Pokemon themselves.
Yeah.
But at least in my, like, social circles at the time, it was like I was a nerd and a dweeb, and it was one of the first times I realized that something I liked could make me different to my peers. And so therefore that for better or for worse, that shaped my psyche a lot and shaped my gaming tastes and shaped my attitudes towards gaming. Like, oh, this is something that sets me apart. Again, sometimes in a negative way, but you know, sometimes in a, like, you find someone who's into Pokemon too, and like you guys are you bond over it, right? Like, you bond over.
Do you think it's
shared.
because of the portable nature of it that allowed you to play it in public?
Yep, it was, and people would see me playing it and be like, "Oh, you're such a nerd.
Yeah.
Oh, Pokemon, that's so nerdy and dorky or whatever." And then Pokemon cards, then as an extension of that, like, you're trading Pokemon cards, that's stupid. And it was just like,
and those kids just hated it because it was popular.
Yep, basically, I guess so. So I'll say Pokemon for, like, opening my eyes to sort of that reality sometimes of being a gamer, especially in the as a kid in the 90s. The next one I'll say for sure is World of Warcraft.
Of course.
As much as I have a love-hate relationship with that game.
You see that PlayStation 3 on my shelf?
Yeah, I missed
you didn't get that.
I missed it. No, I
because
did
you played
Xbox
WoW.
360, but
I'm picking on you.
I know, but I bought that later, like well into the Xbox 360 generation. Yeah. Nevertheless, yeah, not only did it, but it was like, again, there was so much for it. It really did I met my group of friends through, like, the friends that I'm, like, some of my friends that I'm closest to from high school and college. They're like my friend group, right? And I met them because of WoW. It gave me a lot of confidence in, like, social interactions. I led raids, like, and so therefore I, like, taught people how to do things. So it gave me a lot of confidence in being able to be like, yeah, I can, like, communicate things. I had someone tell me that after I, like, explained a raid boss to the group or whatever, someone, like, privately messaged me and was like, dude, you should be a teacher. Like, you're so good at explaining concepts. And I was like, oh, confidence boost for a high schooler was awesome. For, like, a senior in high school, I was like, ah ha, ha. So yeah, it really shaped a lot of and it helped me learn how to, like it helped me learn, like, strategy in games, like how, because again, I like to always say that, like, before World of Warcraft, I would play RPGs by just, like, stacking my Pokemon, for example, with all the damage moves. I didn't know about how to, like, you know, barrier, like Final Fantasy barrier, or even, like, I would heal, but, like, I was super inefficient with how to, like, and it was WoW that really taught me that, like, oh yeah, no, there's roles. There's tanks, healers, and DPS, and you need all 3, and it's okay to not do damage in order to take damage for the group, and stuff like that. So, super influential into, like, how I perceive games. And man, I'm having a hard time for the last one. It would be easy for me to say, again, like, Probably Ocarina of Time, I'd have to say. It is my favorite game of all time for reasons. Again, it shaped, it's like the bottom line foundation of, like, it was the game that I just sort of fell in love with that world and got sucked in and immersed probably for the first time in any game in a way that wasn't just like, oh, this is fun because it's nerdy. This is fun because it's got details. It was, this is fun because I really identify with this world. I identify with this adventure and this story, probably for the first time in Ocarina of Time. And
that would have been my Link to the Past if I had 4.
If you had 4, yeah. So but there's also, I mean, there's you had good picks for good reasons, and there are some other other ones. I mean, like I could talk about Diablo, I could talk about Final Fantasy, I could talk about later games that have shaped my taste too. Like Bloodborne was a game changer for me in my recent tastes. Like I'm playing Dark Souls right now, and I'm sitting there playing it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of more than any of the other Souls-likes I've played so far. I played Sekiro, I played Demon Souls, I've played
Bloodborne.
a lot of the spin-off ones.
Neo.
But yeah, Neo and Code Vein. I've played a lot of them, but playing Dark Souls, I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels the most like Bloodborne, which is the one that I fell in love with. So something, maybe it's because it's older. It feels like Bloodborne because Bloodborne's a little bit older too. Anyways, it's just, again, I could talk. There's so many things I could pick, but I guess Ocarina of Time being my favorite game and the game by which I hold up as a standard to other games probably deserves to make my list for that reason. So
it's cool.
That's good DLC. I like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, because it's different. It's different than just saying list your favorite games.
Right.
It's like
there's
what
reasons,
games have because like I absolutely despise World of Warcraft now,
right?
in a lot of ways. I despise what it's become. I despise what it represents for Blizzard Activision, or Blizzard more importantly. It represents their downfall into Activision. But the game as it was still a great game, and the way that the impact that game had on me, it's different from just saying what's your favorite game. So yeah, it's good. That's DLC. We want to hear what your favorite, or not your favorite games. What are the games that made you the gamer that you are today?
Yeah.
We want to hear, and why. And we want to. That's such a great question. It's one that I'm dying to hear from people what their feedback in this particular question is. So
if you have not ever responded to us after 200 episodes,
this is one to respond to.
This is the one we want the most. So please go to 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our website. It's our landing page. It has everything you need to know about us there. There's links to our podcast platforms of all of your favorite choices. Of course, Google and Apple, but also Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and all the other ones. But also it has our social media outlets. We have a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, a Reddit. This is probably the best for Reddit.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It would be great to set up a topic and say, my favorite 5 games. My 5 games that made me the gamer I am today on our Reddit. Just go do that, and we can discuss there. But we also have a Discord.
Yes, you can chat with us live. Yep.
You can live, interactive.
Literally, I will probably be working, and I'll be like, STFU, I'm working right now. But then I'll come back later and be like, hey, that's a great answer.
That's a really good answer.
I'm just kidding. I won't say STFU.
Never. And you can find that Discord link in all of our show notes that go live with every episode and on our website. We also are live on twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash every Monday and Wednesday night. Twice a week. Monday night for a news show that we just run through the week's news. And Wednesday night for a gameplay live stream / let's play, whatever you want to call it, where we just play a game that we're digging, where you can interact with us while we're playing. Yeah. Probably not the best place to talk about the 5 games that made you the gamer you are, but maybe why not?
Especially if we're playing one of them. So
that's true. Yeah. So we would love to hear from you. So please go do those things. Leave us a review. Bubble up our exposure in the algorithms to new listeners. We would love to have and grow our community so that we can have more interactions like that with our favorite people. So let's do that.
All right. So here's a good midpoint with which we can talk about the fact that we have changed drinks. We finished our delicious beer anniversary Firestone Walker beer, and now we are drinking some kind of whiskey. What kind of whiskey are we drinking that you have shared with me?
Every bourbon is a whiskey, but not every whiskey is a bourbon. So we are drinking bourbon. So you are not wrong.
I love being technically not wrong.
We are drinking Elijah Craig. It is
Okay,
a standard bourbon. It's a mid to upper shelf bourbon that's very common. It's not hard to find at all. Every restaurant, bar, and ABC store or liquor store of your choice should have it on hand. It is one of my amazing go-tos. It's solid every time it's on sale. It's worth the extra $3 to $5 off to just grab a bottle because it's never going to disappoint. It makes amazing old fashions. I was going
to say, this reminds me of an old fashioned.
Yeah.
You probably noticed the face I made because going from taking a sip of beer to taking a sip of whiskey is always a bit of a
jump
adjustment. Right. And that definitely, I think I also have a canker sore in my mouth and the whiskey hit the canker sore and I was like, oh, pain, sharp pain.
Yikes.
So my second sip, I was able to actually appreciate the taste of the whiskey more. And yes, it very much tastes like it's just dying to have some, what do you call it, bitters in them and a little bit of like simple syrup or something. Yeah.
Yep. They make amazing old fashions. An old place we used to go to called Quebeca.
Oh,
the bartender loved Elijah Craig,
nice.
As have I, and so we bonded over our mutual love for Elijah Craig and the amazing old fashions that it can make. And I've done some of those at home, but we're just drinking it straight. So
we're gonna have to go to Rebellion and get old fashions.
Yeah, it's so good.
I think I talked about it on the podcast, but it's amazing.
It is amazing.
All right, you had it.
I have. I went to Rebellion once, and I had an old fashioned.
Well, we'll have to go together
Yes.
and record a live episode. No.
That'd be great. I don't think that's our scene, though.
No, it's not.
A brewery is our
really
scene.
not our scene.
Right.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, great. Then we can move on now to our main topic, which is lessons learned in content creation over the years. We've done 200 episodes in almost 4 years of content, and we are not a huge show. So, take our lessons and ideas worth a grain of salt. I think there are some good nuggets in here. We are coming from the context of doing this while having families and careers and responsibilities. And you know what? Taking some daggone time for ourselves every once in a while.
Yep.
So, someone who may not be in that position may be able to do more and pursue more and be more quote unquote successful. But we also, from the get-go, decided we wanted to do this as a hobby. So I'm by no means trashing or trying to minimize our accomplishments. We did this for 200 episodes, and we want to celebrate that fact.
Yeah.
And we want to kind of talk and reflect. It is a bit of reflection, but it's also reflection with the intent of being productive and sharing our thoughts on this thing we call content, the thing that people call content creation. So we'll start with that question. What lessons have you learned in creating 200 plus episodes of content over almost 4 years? And if someone were starting out today and saying, hey, I want to do content creation of any kind, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out or on the fence about, like, I don't know if I want to do it? What would you say to encourage them and give them some thoughts?
Because we're speaking to the masses, I will say definitely temper your expectations. And I never had the expectations. I started out with that.
Right,
so
we both did. Yeah. We're like, it would be cool if this thing blew up, but also we're just doing this because we needed an outlet. We wanted an outlet.
Yeah, there's no one else in my life that I can talk to about video games that cares about who publishers and studios and news and like following the industry and its trends and like trying to predict what Sony or PlayStation, what's going to happen next with Nintendo, and like no one has that. That's not an outlet for me ever. And I have had no friends that did that until I met Penguin.
Aww.
And so we started doing that and having those discussions, and we were like, we should start a podcast. And with that,
I believe I was the one who said it first. If you want a little bit inside baseball, I was like, hey,
you probably did.
What if we did a podcast?
I would love to do that. And then all of the
You were the only person I thought to myself who was like, you would actually do it.
Yes, exactly.
All our friends, I have friends who we have that conversation, but I don't have friends who are like, yes, let's do it and let's make it happen and make it a reality. Because our dynamic has always been, I'm the in the clouds dreamer and you're
Creator.
the one who gets things done.
Administration.
You're the administrator. Exactly.
Yes.
So.
Yep. And it works out great. And so temper your expectations. The reason why I say that is because if you are a regular member of the public who happens to hear about video game streamers on Twitch or YouTubers or podcasters, all you're going to hear are the crazy big rich names like Ninja or like, I don't know,
Asmongold or whatever.
Tim the Tat Man or something. I don't even know them all because like I don't follow
that's not our thing.
Pokemon.
Pokemon.
Like, someone I was just on Kotaku and I was I'm literally regurgitating Kotaku headlines, right?
Right.
So like that's not. It never was going to be you,
no.
unless there are very few people, right? In a sea, so in a sea of people, this is an extremely crowded space. There's anyone can start a podcast.
And exactly. Podcasting is so. It's always a joke. It's like, hey, what did you do over the pandemic? Oh, I started a podcast.
Everyone did.
We can say that we were doing a podcast before the pandemic, but nevertheless, like we were not on the cutting edge of podcasts in 2007 when they when Apple released an iPhone and allowed you to download podcasts from
anywhere in the world.
I guess it was before that. iPods, you could download them to your iPods. So before even the iPhone was a thing. Yes, podcasts, I guess, I don't know when they started. We should do an episode on the history of podcasts sometime, I guess.
Yeah, fun.
But podcast people who got on the ground running with podcasts before they were popular,
the Joe Rogans of the
and
world.
then got to the stuff you should know. Stuff you should know is like the most downloaded podcast of all time. And yes, I'm a listener, and they like rubbed that fact in my face recently, not in a mean way because they're not mean guys, but it was definitely one of those things where it was like, oh yeah, they are the most popular. Here I am being like, listen to my Dinky podcast while I'm sitting here listening to the most popular podcast in the world. No, I totally agree with that. I would also say, kind of part and parcel with that, like go in with a like whatever your ambition is, like stick to that. For us, our ambition was just let's have fun. Let's do this thing. I needed a creative outlet. I was a washed up theater major who was working in, I guess would have been after I started in IT, but like I wasn't
around the same time.
I didn't have a creative. I wasn't doing anything creative, and I'm a creative, like as you said, I'm a creative type. So I needed an outlet, and so my intention the entire time was to just do something for fun, and if it got successful, fine, but we never put pressure on ourselves to, quote, like,
make it successful.
Make it, right, get thousands of listeners. And, we talked about what it would look like if we did, but we never we never actually went in with the intention of doing that. Mostly we just wanted to get together and talk about video games and see where, build it and see what came.
Yep.
And so that's important, though, because if you want to be a voice or whatever, if you want to have hundreds of thousands of followers, there's no shame in that. Go after that, but go after it with put together a plan. How are you going to do that? Because, again, lesson number 2, I think that we've both learned is it is not just if you build it, they will come. It is not just if you do this thing for 200 times in a row, then you're eventually going to get hundreds of listeners. No, that's not how it works. You have to have a plan for how are you going to engage your audience? Where are you going to engage your audience? What are you going to do? And how much money do you want to invest in it? Because money is also a factor. Like, you have to, whatever it is, whether it's streaming, whether it's podcasting, whether it's videos on YouTube, whether it's writing a blog, whatever it is, you need to list out your upfront costs, because those upfront costs are going to be different depending on what medium it is. But again, blogs can, depending on what, again, you get what you pay for in a lot of ways. Like, you could pay for a platform that will get your stuff out there and advertise for you or whatever, or you could do WordPress, which is free. And so you have to but you have to self promote. Right. Are you going to pay for Google ads? So for podcasting, and we'll give you a little inside baseball here. Let's see. We had to set up a RSS feed.
Yep.
And we do ours through Libsyn. Which generates it for us. So we pay a monthly subscription to Libsyn for X amount of data per month.
X amount of data. They're our hosting website where I upload the MP3s to every single week.
Yep. And then we have a domain that we pay for yearly.
And we link to that domain to Libsyn, which Libsyn costs money for.
Exactly.
As an add-on for Libsyn services. If you want your own domain that's not controlled by Libsyn, you got to pay extra for it. So I'm paying for the domain, paying for Libsyn, and I'm paying for the link, which is like $2 a month.
Sure. Yeah, but it still costs, right? So you have to do this in and again, I listed, there are free versions of these things, but we decided to, and for us, we had a partnership. So that's the other thing too. That's, again, another thing. Are you going to do this alone, or are you going to do this with a partner? There are pluses and minuses, pros and cons to each. If you do it alone, you have full creative control.
Yep.
But you also don't have someone to share the burdens with. And also, if you're a person like me, you have no one to keep you on task, which I need. It's very clear that I need someone to be like, hey, it's Monday, we're getting together to record today. And I might drag my feet and go, but I'll do it. I'll be there because I don't want to let someone else down. Right. So so that's another consideration. Yeah. So again, you have to come in with my point is, whether it's cost, whether it's partner or not, or whatever it is, you need to kind of come up with a plan, because the internet's been around now for 20 plus years.
Yep.
Been around as a thing, as a way to reach an audience. It's had an audience on there for 20 plus years, and it's things are now set in stone. Ways of doing things, gatekeepers, and things are set now in stone, and you have to come up with a plan as to how to break in, if that's what you want to do, and if this is the medium you want to do it on, or you just do this for fun, right? Like we do. So
that's a great segue. So we've talked about temper your expectations, because this space is extraordinarily crowded. Have a plan, and the third, my mind just left. Gone.
The third is that's going to happen all the time.
Yes, thank you. Don't ignore yourself. Don't do it don't ignore yourself. Or I don't know what the phrase I'm looking for is yet, but we'll get there. When you have your plan and you've tempered your expectations and you want to make it big, don't just do it for the sake of making it big. You need to be unique. That's it. Be unique.
Have a voice. Find your voice.
Find your voice.
That was hard for us at the beginning. We didn't necessarily know what our voice was. I remember we had all kinds of back and forth. I remember this specifically with our very first episode. You're like, what if we framed it as a debate? And you dropped that on me a week before we were going to record. You're like, what if we debated? What if I took one side and you took the other? And I was like, I mean, we could do that, but that's kind of entirely different from what I imagined. And so we had a discussion about that. Yeah. And I think we ended up landing not on the side of doing that, but we took that idea and still kind of worked it in. And we're like, oh yeah, maybe we should present the other point of view. And that kind of, again, but I think if you listen to our early episodes, we hadn't, and we have this specific extra difficulty of having to find our voice together.
Yep.
There's our individual voices, and then there's our voice as a partnership, as a and that's entirely different.
That was extremely organic, because we have different traits in our
Sure.
personalities that complement each other. So I just look at the world differently than you do.
Right.
And so like that works in our favor because we don't have to try very hard to make the differences.
Yeah, but then getting that, like,
still have
that's
to control
in our
it.
personality, but then getting that out into how
Right.
it works in any individual episode, I think we took some time to kind
Yeah,
of
we did.
settle
Sure.
into that. Yeah.
But no one likes a couple of guys getting together on a podcast and blabbering while getting drunk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And we
for
knew
sure.
that. So like,
Right.
but we also love craft beer and we want to be like in that space too. So we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. It's kind
Yeah.
of where that came from. Was like, we don't want to just ramble. So we need to find our voice and we need to have a plan and we have to, temper
But we want the
expectations.
conversation to be natural as if you were having it over a beer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so I think we did a great job with the topical idea. It was so our voice was let's do topics about video games.
Yep.
Like is video games art?
Yep.
Or and most recently like lighting in video games.
Mhm.
It's a topic that's non-sequential, it's non-timely. You can go in any order you want.
Yep.
And if you missed an episode, oh well, come to the newest one. You're going to be fine. You didn't
Sure,
miss anything.
you're not missing anything. Yep. Mhm.
And
You might miss some inside jokes or whatever, but who cares?
in a
Like, go
sea
catch
of
up.
video game podcasts that analyze the industry, and like I said, we love those and we appreciate that and we have those conversations, but most video game podcasts are about analyzing the industry or
Right.
making predictions or doing discussions about how developers are moving, studios and devs, all those things, which we love and talk about on our news show as the news happens, but we are very like grounded in our
Sure,
topics.
we want to talk about this thing that we all love and all the various topics that come out as a result of
and
it.
that was our voice.
And some of it with the intention of being educational. That's why we always go back and try to talk about like the history of things or what thing we even just like don't take for granted that everyone listening is a gamer. No, that's good. And to give you guys again, I like to take this opportunity, this episode, like to give people a little bit of inside baseball as to like what our process is. We also kind of settled into a process of like, oh, like I think you almost always like these days, you every week looks like you almost always come up with the list of topics we cover in our news show. So
Yep.
you're like, because you're keyed in, you get links and everything.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, I'm working on the outline for each episode, which is all the questions. It's almost always why if you're listening to our episodes, I'm almost always the one to like segue us into
Here's
our
our
next
questions.
question
Yep.
because I wrote the questions. So like, I write the questions and then we get together at some point in the week. Usually it's Monday and either we usually these days now it's like we record we do our live Twitch show,
Yep.
and then we go right into recording our next episode.
Yep.
And then the file, in whatever form it is, whether it's from Zencaster or whether it's directly on my computer in Audacity, the file comes to me. I do a first pass of editing. I send it off to you for a second pass of editing. My first pass usually looks like cuts, again, to the content itself. So I will cut out if we have some stupid conversation that's like, okay, this was inane and pointless or offensive in some cases.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, no, let's cut that. That's not right. And, or even just cutting out things like too many or likes or knows or whatever. It's usually me too. I very rarely have to actually cut you. Usually I'm like, oh, Dan, stop. And then, see, I just did it now.
Yeah,
That'll
you
probably cut. And then it goes to you for things like sound, the more technical
Right.
aspects of how does this sound, and you do yours. I don't even know exactly what you do.
I compress it, normalize it. I do equalization, bass boosting.
Boom.
And I do ID3 tags, and then I upload everything to Libsyn with all the
Mhm.
show notes and all the tagging and all of the scheduling. So
Yeah.
I make sure it goes live at the right time. And then I handle all the social media, not to say all, but I handle most of the social media stuff around our shows.
Yeah. So if you haven't caught on, again, this is another thing to consider if you're like on the fence about this or are just starting out. It's like we have split this up. We've split up about probably, we record our episodes are 50 minutes to like 50 to 80 minutes usually. And we probably spend double or triple that amount of time like preparing the episode after it's already recorded.
And that's just one podcast once a week.
Yep, and we split that up between the two of us.
Yeah.
So you have to all the things that he just listed and all the things I just listed,
Combined.
you do it all if you're doing it by yourself.
Right.
Now, again, sometimes these kinds of conversations can come across as like, here's all the reasons why you probably don't want to do this. And I want to say, like, before we move on to our next question, my last little piece of advice is like, if you have a desire to do, if you're on the fence, like just do it. Like again, like
we do it.
We talked about like how you want to come in with a plan and stuff like that, but if that all sounds daunting to you, like just start off small and do something, make something. I'm of the mind where like if you have an artistic inclination of any kind, whether it's content or whether it's one of the more artistic fields like sculpting or painting or whatever, like just do it. Just if you're like, oh, I'm not going to be good enough, then who cares? Like don't make it for other people. If your concern is people will hate this, don't make it for them, make it for yourself. Start by making it for yourself. And so you can download Audacity for free and you can record an episode, get a mic, record an episode. You can do it on your phone, whatever. You can record an MP3 and you can just edit, get it to the point where you would then share it with the world. And then if you don't want to share it with the world after that point, then don't. Like, you don't have to, like, just, it's okay to make something for yourself and be proud and happy of it if you have the inclination to make it all. So that would be my little bit of like counter encouragement there. And I mean, literally, that's what we did, though. Is like we were both like, we want to do this. Let's make it happen. Let's do it.
Let's just go.
Let's go. Let's start, and we'll answer all those things we just talked about. How we have a groove and how we have responsibilities that we
came organically as we went.
We figured that out, and some of it was hit or miss, and some of it was touch and go, and sometimes we wanted to do other things in different orders or whatever, but like we trial and errored it out. And so like to start, you have to at least take the first step. The most important step a man can take is the next one. Always the next one.
So philosophical.
It's a Stormlight Archive quote. You do your Hamilton quotes, I'll do my Stormlight ones. All right, you ready to move on to the next question?
It's a great segue, actually. So the next question is, what have you learned about covering or producing video game content specifically?
Right. So we've been talking generally about whatever. Like if you want to do a podcast or a video YouTube show about street art, then like I don't want to minimize that. That's cool stuff. It's different from covering video games. Video games are a different beast. So we've been covering video games.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the bent of this question is what have we learned from covering or producing content?
The beginning answer to that question is, this is a segue, is just create content that you're passionate about. Yeah. I have loved and lived video games my entire life. I had a GamePro subscription since I was in elementary school. I digested every video game magazine since Electronic Gaming Monthly, Nintendo Power. At the moment I had an internet connection, the very first website I went to were video game websites, GameFAQs. I was reading guides. I printed them at school off school printers, walkthroughs and player's guides for free, quote unquote, because it cost the school paper and ink. Right. So like I lived and breathed video games my whole life. So starting a podcast to talk about them was a no-brainer. I just dove right in. But what makes the video game industry so unique is that it's so new. And this is what was so amazing for us, or at least the catalyst for us to even start this conversation about having topics around video games versus the industry itself, which our new show covers. New show was new. We'll get there later, actually. The new show is more new. And when we started the podcast, we had a new segment in our show where I did want it, because I'm very passionate about talking about the video game industry. But when I grew up, Mario wasn't in Target. Like, Pokemon wasn't in Walmart. The people that worked at these stores didn't know when I came to the store and said, "Hey, Warcraft 3 came out today. Do you have a copy?" I was looked at like I had three eyes from the person working in the electronics department. Right. Like, finding video game consoles back when the N64 came out involved a call list where you would call Rose's, Kmart, Walmart, and you would find, like, the internet has changed the whole landscape entirely, and now it's way more mainstream, but it's still so new. Like, I remember being ostracized as a nerd for loving video games, but those people who ostracized and called me a nerd today are now making games, and they're more of a gamer than the people who are making games then.
And it's interesting that we get, like, when we're covering topics and we're covering, we have to talk about the history of things, but the history is so new. Like, we haven't done an episode where we've talked about anything that has dated back earlier than like 1979, I think, may have been the earliest thing we've ever talked about. Yeah. So like, that's not that long. I mean, that was
50 years ago.
That's only like, it's only 10, 15 years before either of us were born. So that's not a lot of history that we missed out on. And so we've been around for a lot of the history. And so it's always surreal to me that when we kind of do dives back into the past, it's always surreal that I'm like, oh man, we lived through that dynamic shift, and we're living through dynamic shifts now because video gaming is so new that it's
to give you context, my 6-year-old son is experiencing Mario Sunshine for the first time. That's a 20-year-old game. Yeah. When I was 6 years old, 1992. 20-year-old was 1972, which means maybe there was a Pong arcade in a bar. Maybe. Yeah. 20 years before my first exposure to games, when I was 6. Yep. So, like, that's the difference. 20 years ago for my son was Mario Sunshine on the GameCube, which was full 3D, 60 frames per second, like, way more advanced technology, right? So it's that new, or just 2 generations at. And
right, and it's just proceeding at such a fast pace,
Retirement homes don't have video games as their mainstream form of entertainment yet.
But they will.
They will. Like, we're 10 years away from that. It's that
crazy.
New.
Yeah.
And so what makes covering video games in a podcast, or at least in content creation, unique, we jumped in before the zeitgeist of Twitch and YouTube, and now podcasts all surrounding the video game industry. I know my Twitter feed, or at least the 80-bit Pod Smash one, is nothing but video game industry journalists and pundits. So like I just see nonstop commentary about the video game industry all the time on Twitter. That wasn't a thing when we started our podcast. At least it wasn't as big as it is now, I feel like. And that was only 4 years ago.
Right.
It's increasing exponentially now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the video game industry is very new, but it's also huge. And it's growing in a way that's totally unique and separate from like movies and music and magazines and pop culture. It's growing in its own. I feel like it's taking over the internet more quickly than those things did.
Yeah. A couple things I've learned about covering specifically video game content is there's two things. Number one, sometimes you have to cover things you don't like.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, it's so big. I mean, we've done episodes on MOBAs, we've done episodes on mobile games. We're going to do an episode next week on survival games, and like those are just 3 examples off the top of my head of things that we're both just like, okay, we don't play those, and we have no interest in playing them. But because we know that there are listeners out there who do, we want to try to be respectful of those tastes, because there are, again, it's such a broad topic of conversation. It's like having a movie podcast. You probably eventually have to cover movies that you don't care about.
If you want to be objective, you're chasing that like critique, almost criticism voice where you really do want to digest what a video game has to offer and create an opinion about it in an intellectual way. You have to have to consume content you don't like.
Yeah, you have to at least talk about it. You don't have to necessarily consume it and do it. We don't have to necessarily. We're not reviewers.
We have to address it. It's true.
So we don't have to go out and play those things.
That's true.
That's another thing too. Is like video game reviews is kind of like
a thing.
The content that's been being made around video games for forever.
Yep.
And we decided to eschew that and just say, let's talk about topics, which will include us talking about games we like and dislike, but nevertheless, like, we don't necessarily have to go out of our way because our content isn't centered around like the newest, hottest games.
Yep.
We don't have to grit our teeth and force ourselves to play things we don't care about. Sometimes we do anyways, but that's neither here nor there.
But that's one of the cool things I've seen you learn and grow, because you would approach the gaming industry from your lens.
Right.
And so like the Assassin's Creed being a games as a service move from Ubisoft, you would have just rolled your eyes and moved on. And you would not have even had a discussion about it. But now you're plugged in, you know who Ubisoft is, you know their history as a publisher, and you know Assassin's Creed
and their controversies.
And the money.
Right. So it's still interesting to talk about.
And you have all those context now, and you can actually voice an opinion about, that's a good move for Ubisoft, but I don't like it.
But I don't like
versus
it, right.
That's stupid, I don't care.
That's stupid, I don't care. I'm not going to talk
How
about it.
How shallow is that's stupid, I don't care, versus that's a really smart move for Ubisoft, I don't like it, here's why. Right? Like there's two totally different, and I've seen you evolve in that conversation.
Sure.
That's personal growth involved in discussing the video game industry with embracing topics and engaging in things that you don't care about so much.
The other thing I've learned is that it was covering video games, is that I was concerned. There was a point where we had brainstormed a whole list of topics, right? Like, these are the things that we can talk about with video games. And we started to reach the end of that list, and I started to get worried, like, what if we're going to run out of things to talk about? And one of the things I've learned is, like, so far for 200 episodes, we have not run out of things to talk about.
There's
like,
always
infinite.
I mean,
it's, maybe infinite. I don't know. Maybe eventually we'll reach the point where we're like, we have talked about everything for video games, and we can put the podcast
There's
to bed.
no way.
No,
because tomorrow something will happen, and there'll be a new topic.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. So
every day.
I have found that there are like, and there's a lot of topics too that like I would like to revisit, like go back to some of our older episodes and be like, let's revisit this conversation that we had a long time ago. But I've learned things and grown, and things have changed in the industry even in the last 4 years. So so I've definitely learned that there doesn't seem to so far be things to run out of talking about, and maybe we'll hit a wall. We do sometimes take a while to like sit down and come up with what we want to talk about next, but we haven't reached the end of the list so far.
Yep.
We keep adding to the list is more important. That's why there's no end to it. So that was something that sort of surprised me. But all right, I want to move on. I do want to talk about this next question if we have time, more than the other question, the other last question we have. So here's a question. Do you have any regrets? Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to start over today? Or go back in time and say, do this differently?
It's very insightful. I would have taken the boring back end stuff more. I wish I would have known those things in advance, but it's impossible to know that. So there's so many disjointed services that we pay for and like put together. It's like buying a domain, doing the secure socket layer for that domain to have an HTTPS domain name and tying that to Libsyn as our hosting service, and like Libsyn creating our website for us. And that's kind of the web page. When you go to 80bitpodsmash.com, that whole thing is rendered and distributed from Libsyn. But like maybe leveraging Squarespace or some other service to
yeah.
make a real website.
Sure.
That probably would be a little bit different because now we know, and starting over from scratch would give you a ground zero. And there's always a desire for me to want to revamp all of that stuff. It took a while for me to even get into Twitch and like adjusting our profile and like tweaking it, putting the links in there properly, and like having all of our notes. Our About Me page and stuff. Our YouTube, like I didn't realize to be like a verified YouTube channel, you have to have X amount of subscribers. And so like maybe I would have done more research about how to leverage YouTube better early on, because now we just kind of upload our audio to it and we put all of our Twitch videos there. But I never really considered video content as that important because we wanted to be a podcast first.
Yep.
Which was both amazing and also like a very minor regret. So like I like the idea of recording us live and like having a live audience.
Yeah, that was a good move. That was definitely, I think, a good thing. Is I totally wish we had done that earlier because of what we always talk about. The reason why we started our news show is because we found ourselves 2 weeks behind.
Right.
I'd be editing the episode and be like, "This is old news."
Right. Like no one cares about.
No one cares about this anymore. This conversation has moved on, so it was nice to be able to be like, "Hey, let's leverage an entirely different medium for this content." Because, but again, I wish we had figured out to do that sooner, a lot sooner. My only, I guess, I don't know, a thought is what I've noticed over time is that we started out and we made such an emphasis on like we need to do our research, we need to make sure we have sources listed and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and I think that was a good start. That was a good let's err on the side of doing over researching topics than under researching them. Nowadays we're just like, I think we pick topics that we can more or less, like we can do some basic research if we need to on like the history of things, but more or less like we frame and out, like I make an effort when I'm designing the outlines for the episodes. I'm like, I'm going to throw in questions in here that are more open-ended in an effort to reduce the amount of research we have to do. So I guess there's sort of like, there's a mixed bag. On the one hand, it would be really awesome to spend the time to do more research on things and come at things with a really like an emphasis on like we have really dug into this. Yeah. But I get, again, we also have to balance that with the reality of like life. Exactly. Yeah. Life.
And in the end, like the other end of that spectrum, right? The ones that are fully in it are the industry journalists that you read and the pundits that have the podcasts that their life is this.
Yeah. They paid.
Go to every expo. They get sponsorships. They have like their life is interviewing developers and publishers one-on-one and getting primary sources. Like that's the other end of the spectrum. So that's where this could go. That's not a regret that we're not doing that. That's impossible for us because we have careers and kids and wives. Like, what is it? There's another podcast called Married to the Games. They have wives, lives, 9 to 5s. And it's fantastic. It's exactly what we are. And they're awesome. Actually, I love that podcast. I listen to them often. So, like, I consume my research, like, work was significantly reduced in general because I consume video game industry stuff in general all the time. Like that's just my life. So like all of my podcasts I listen to are all video game podcasts. I still have Game Informer. I'm reading stuff online. I follow Reddits. Like all the subreddits are all gaming related. Yeah. And so I'm just in tune to that. So it's very easy for me to pick up a topic and be like, oh yeah, video games. Like we did that lighting episode and all of the stuff that I came up with was like 10 minutes of research because like I knew exactly where to look. Yeah. And I'd heard all that stuff my whole life. And so if you go back to our lighting episode, that was one of our research heavy-ish, more modern.
Definitely one. Yeah. Definitely one more of our like factual, like more fact-based, like this is what it does, this is what it is. Yeah. As opposed to like, this is what we think about this.
Yep. And it would have been cool. And another kind of regret would have been to just bite the bullet on the upfront cost and do the LLC and like get the business monetization side foundation laid. And just do that and like just have it done.
If we had, even if it had started out as just like $2 to $3 per month, like it would still be something that we would have been able to.
Because 4 years later, we're like, man, that's nothing. That's chump change. Yeah, we could have had that.
And we've talked about doing it, like starting it, and like been serious, like we're gonna do it, we're gonna pull the trigger on this, and then just never did.
Yep.
For 4 years,
always a technical hurdle. Like
it's either a technical hurdle or just like a we talk about it and then life gets in the way. Right. And it's I'm with you. I'm totally with you on that one. It's like that would have been nice to have in place by now. Mm-hmm. And it's not, and that's okay. And so we can give ourselves a little bit of grace and forgive ourselves a little bit for that one.
We have
but
a great
it's totally
podcast
one.
and a great community, and it's working.
Yeah, like, exactly.
It's not as
we're doing a thing, and that's okay. And that's exactly it. Yeah, exactly. Like we have, we look at the numbers, check the numbers on Libsyn periodically because they track the numbers for us, and we're getting a significant amount of downloads.
Yep.
I don't know who those downloads are. Like that's the other thing I wish. That's kind of a regret is I wish either one of us not necessarily, it wouldn't even have to be both of us, but neither one of us are particularly great at engagement. And that's not necessarily a personality thing. It's just, once again, wives' lives and 9 to 5s.
Yep.
But also, like, engagement is one thing that, like, I wish I was able to figure that out. And, like you know, what, like, they're always like, yeah, go to those subreddits and, like, start conversations and be like, yeah, here's this crazy, interesting conversation. And also, here's the link to my stuff. And I'm like, oh, ooh, I'm so nervous about that. What if they downvote me because I linked my crap?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I have had, like, straight up mods remove my posts because I mentioned I had a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
In the middle of something entirely different. Like, oh, by the way, if you care more about this, I have a whole show that it's more or less like I have an opinion about this thing and I don't want to type the monologue here. So if you care about this, I have a 30-minute show.
Yeah,
that you can go look
people who you do podcasts or do content creation, they're always like, you need to like engage with people and then like use that as a way to like share your stuff. But in my experience with that, it's always like nobody wants to hear you hawk your crap.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like how some people just have a natural talent in how to navigate that stuff.
Yep.
And neither of us particularly have it. And so I'm like, again, it's not so much a regret because I also accept my limitations, and our limitations, but it's one of those things where it's like, I wish we'd figured that out.
Yep.
Like, I wish we had found a way, I don't know, go to a seminar and figure out exactly how to do it. And then also how to fit that into your life and time. Because it would have been nice. I mean, honestly, that's the biggest thing is like, we see the numbers saying that there are people listening to it. And we almost every episode, we're like, we don't know who you are, but we want to.
Yep.
We want to talk with you and we want to engage with you. And some of our listeners do. But a lot of the listeners that we engage with are also people that we know in real life or,
right.
you know 1 to 2 degrees of separation.
Yep.
And that's fine. We're happy that we have people to talk to, but we don't want this to just be a podcast of our friends in our circle. We want the people who are listening to us and not talking to us to talk with us. And,
yeah.
But we just, the onus of responsibility on that is not necessarily the listeners. It's on us to reach them. And that's where that's
our weakest.
We don't get it.
It's our blind spot, I guess.
That's our blind spot. Yep. We don't get it. We don't know how to do it.
Right when I was really, really, really motivated to like go to expos and start engaging with folks and get a booth and like got a poster and like business cards, like let's go. Next step is merch. Like COVID happened and just took all of the motivation.
Wind out of your sails.
I was
completely.
like, man, I was ready to go to E3. I was ready to go to MagFest. I was ready to go to PAX. Like, let's do this. Of course, now we have tiny children, tiny humans that require all of our attention. And so just going to Boston for 3 days is a massive undertaking.
Man, my wife would murder both of us.
Right. It's like, it's
she'd be like, I'd rather start over with a new man than
right. It
let you do
yes,
that.
It's like it's that degree of extreme when it comes to little children.
Yeah, for real.
And so that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
That's not really
fine.
a regret.
So we're gonna keep being here every Monday. Is what it boils down to.
Yeah, and that goes back to lessons learned. Advice number 1, more than anything else. We talked about like all the stuff, find your voice.
Sure, yeah.
All that. Be consistent. You have to meet a schedule.
Yep.
And I have hated some of the times we've had to miss our Twitch stuff, but I will never miss a podcast.
Right.
Every single
We'll make
Monday
it
and
happen,
night.
yeah.
And if I have to get on a mic on Sunday night by myself and produce a show, which has never happened in 4 years.
No, it hasn't, yeah.
There will be an 80-Bit Pod Smash
Sure.
episode every single Monday at midnight.
Yeah.
I've only missed one by 6 hours. It was 6:30 in the morning. I woke up Monday morning. This was like 3 years ago. It was very early.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And I was like, crap, I totally forgot. And like I uploaded it because we had done the prep work. So the MP3 was ready to go.
The episode was already there.
I just needed to do the last leg of uploading it. And so other than that one hiccup, that's only the latest 6 hours one time ever. We have always hit our mark.
Yeah.
And that's a schedule, and that's where I'm really good at with the administrative stuff. Is making sure we hit that schedule. We always have content to publish. Our audience knows when to expect us.
Yeah, he'll hit me up if
10
it's Saturday or whatever, and I haven't gotten him
where is it?
my cut. It's a hey, where is it? And what's going on? Yep. And sometimes there have been times where I've been like, dude, I just can't. I can't get the time. And then I'll just forward it to you, and it comes out a little bit less, a little bit more and ahs in there. Yeah, exactly. A little bit less proofread.
We make it work,
so to speak, and we make it work, and that's fine. But yeah, cool. All right. Well, I think that's time. And we went a little bit over than we like to, but that's okay.
We're going to skip celebratory conversation.
Exactly. We're going to skip our last question. And hopefully I don't have a baby between now and the time I get to actually get this thing edited so I can get it to you.
If not, we'll just do the quick edited version.
For sure.
The Termite
you'll get all the uhs and ahs. And
Yep.
all the things I said, I'm cutting this. No, they'll be in there. They'll probably be in there anyways because they're kind of amusing. But anyways, that is the show. We talked about content creation. We want to hear your thoughts. What do you... I mean, are you someone who's an aspiring content creator and learn something, or are you just someone who's like, yeah, I like their show and it's interesting to kind of have heard some of the context and the nitty gritty details that I'm not privy to. We kind of tried to let you know in this episode. So we want to hear those thoughts and more. Or if you're just like, you guys need to stop talking,
let us know.
Then let us know. You know what? Have the guts to say something to us.
Do it.
Yeah, do it.
Coward.
And then we'll be
Tell
like,
us we're terrible.
And then we'll be like, my feelings are hurt, but we're gonna keep going and soldier on anyways.
Never read the comments.
No, for sure. So, but we will read your comments.
We will.
But,
sometimes on the air.
Yeah, sometimes. So, those thoughts and more, please, Termite will once again give you the skinny mini version as to
where to go.
So, yeah.
80bitpodsmash.com, 80bitpodsmash.com has links to all of our social media outlets, our RSS feed link, and our podcast platforms of your choice, as well as our Discord server. It's all there, our YouTube channel. Go to twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. Find us every Monday and every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for our new show and our gameplay stream that we do on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. So, next week, episode 201, Survival Games.
Survival Games, yeah. I realized that we had said last week that we were doing that this week, but no surprise, we're doing a 200th celebration because it was our 200th episode. So, for our 201st episode, yeah, we're going to do a genre deep dive on survival games.
And look out for our 4-year anniversary episode.
In like 2 months.
In 2 months. And then maybe our year-end episode where we just kind of cap the whole year. So we have a lot of celebratory episodes.
Some milestones. We got some milestones.
Yeah.
To look forward to. So, all right, cool. Well, we'll see you then.
See you next week.